I want to start by walking you through Liam Lawson's short, sharp time at Red Bull, so you get why his demotion landed so badly with him and with a lot of fans. When Red Bull promoted Lawson into the senior car for 2025, it raised eyebrows because he had only done 11 races for the Racing Bulls across 2023 and 2024. And, by raw results, he hadn't convincingly outperformed Yuki Tsunoda. Still, being handed a seat at a top-tier team should come with support, preparation, and a phased plan to build confidence. Yet Lawson says he arrived with far less preparation than many other rookies get. 2 race weekends on tracks he'd never raced before, one of them a sprint weekend, and reliability problems during testing and in Melbourne. That meant he never had a clean block of track time to learn how the senior car behaved. In Australia, he qualified 18th and crashed out in tricky conditions, which was rough but not uncommon for rookies in chaos. Yet in China, the whole situation escalated when the team elected to try a very aggressive setup change described by Lawson as a shot in the dark. He accepted that setup, believing it would help him develop an understanding of the car, but the result from that gamble was then used as the main justification to swap him out immediately and bring Yuki back for Suzuka. A decision Lawson found brutal because it judged him on the exact experiment the team had asked him to run. The sequence reads as a perfect storm of bad timing and poor planning. Limited prep, a radical setup while you're still finding the car, and then being judged on the outcome of a gamble you were given no time to adapt to. Lawson is candid in admitting his own performances weren't flawless and that he would do some things differently in hindsight, but he's also realistic that a whole season at Red Bull under those circumstances would likely have wrecked his confidence and possibly erased interest from other teams. Since returning to the Racing Bulls, he's rebuilt. Momentum, scoring points, and showing that those 2 Red Bull weekends were not a definitive measure of his ability, which brings us to the bigger point. This isn't just about one driver's bad weekend, it's about how a team structures promotion and support. Promotion without a plan can be worse than a slower, more supported pathway, because confidence is everything for a rookie. Quick question for you. Do you think Red Bull were right to make such a ruthless call and swap drivers so quickly, or should they have backed Lawson longer? Vote in the poll right now. Back him or swap him. And drop a one-line reason in the comments. If this breakdown helps you follow the season better, hit subscribe and ring the bell. We're chasing 1,000 subscribers, and every new sub helps us keep bringing straight-to-the-point F1 analysis. When you look closely at those 2 weekends, it's easier to understand why the results turned out the way they did. Let's start with Melbourne. Lawson came into that race with almost no rhythm in the Red Bull car. Testing in Bahrain had already been hit by reliability issues, so his first meaningful laps under race pressure came in one of the most chaotic weekends of the season. The weather was mixed, track conditions changed constantly, and even experienced drivers struggled to keep the car on track. Qualifying 18th and crashing out sounds bad on paper, but when you factor in the circumstances, it was not an unusual rookie outcome. The car itself wasn't stable, and Lawson had no time to learn how to push it to the edge without crossing the line. China was different, and this is where things really unraveled. Red Bull made a bold call to completely change the car's setup, not fine-tune it, but to take a shot-in-the-dark approach to try to uncover something about its handling. For a rookie still learning basic confidence in a new car, that's one of the worst things you can experience. Imagine trying to understand a tricky car, finally starting to feel a little more comfortable, and then suddenly the car behaves in an entirely different way. The team said the goal was long-term development, but Lawson discovered afterward that this very performance was used against him in the decision to demote him. That must have felt like a trap, judged not on stability or progression, but on the results of a one-off experiment. And here's the thing. Setup choices at the elite level can completely transform a car's behavior. When engineers swing 2, far, drivers suddenly deal with oversteer in corners they thought were safe, braking zones that feel unpredictable, and a loss of trust in how the car will react. For Lawson, this wasn't just a matter of driving style, it was an impossible situation to adjust to in the tiny window he was given. Add in the pressure of trying to prove yourself in only your second race at a top team, and you see why that Chinese weekend looked as messy as it did. Now, the question for you is simple. Was that fair? Should a rookie be evaluated on the results of an experimental setup, or should the team have given him a stable platform first before making those changes? Answer in the yes or no poll right now. Fair or unfair? And if you like these race-by-race breakdowns, make sure to hit the like button because it tells me you want more of this kind of detail. This brings us naturally to the bigger picture: Red Bull's culture. Lawson's case isn't just about two tough races. It reflects how Red Bull approaches their young drivers overall. Red Bull's handling of Lawson isn't an isolated story. It's part of a bigger pattern that has defined the team's approach to young drivers for more than a decade. The philosophy is simple. Give talent a chance at the top, but if results don't come immediately, move on to the next driver waiting in line. In theory, that sounds efficient. You always have a pipeline of hungry, motivated racers fighting for their shot. But in practice, it creates a brutal environment where confidence is fragile and mistakes are punished more than they are corrected. Think about some of the names we've seen in that system. Daniil Kvyat was promoted quickly, scored podiums, then lost his seat when Max Verstappen was ready. Pierre Gasly got half a season in the senior Red Bull before being replaced. Alex Albon went through the same cycle. Each of them talented, each of them capable, but each thrown into a high-pressure seat without the kind of long-term support we see at other teams. Lawson's two-race stint fits right into that tradition. One chance, one stumble, and the door slams shut. There's no denying that this method has produced champions too. Verstappen himself is the prime example of someone who thrived under those conditions. He was promoted aggressively, and he adapted so quickly that he became untouchable in the system. But the truth is, for every Verstappen, there are several drivers who don't survive the harsh learning curve. And once Red Bull moves on, it's incredibly hard for those drivers to rebuild their careers elsewhere. That's the double edge of this approach. It either makes you or it breaks you. The real question is whether that model makes sense anymore. Formula One cars are more complex than ever, the pressure is higher than ever, and rookies rarely arrive with unlimited testing under their belts. Does it really make sense to judge them on 1 or 2 weekends? Or should teams be thinking about development the way Mercedes does? Longer preparation, more structured support, and patience when things inevitably go wrong? So let me ask you, if you were in charge of a junior program, would you run it like Red Bull, with fast promotions and fast cuts, or would you go for a slower, more gradual grooming approach? Vote in the poll and drop one example in the comments of a driver you think Red Bull handled either perfectly or poorly. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe. We're closing in on 1,000 subscribers, and your support is what keeps these videos coming. Mercedes approached Andrea Kimi Antonelli's rookie season in a completely different way, and the contrast with Red Bull couldn't be clearer. Instead of throwing him straight into the deep end and judging him race by race, Mercedes made sure he was prepared long before his first Grand Prix. He spent time testing older cars, logging miles, and building familiarity with how Formula One machinery behaves. That preparation gave him the foundation he needed to start strong. In fact, 5 points finishes in his first 6 races made it obvious that Mercedes had done their homework. He even stood on the podium in Canada and grabbed a pole in the Miami Sprint. Those are results that show talent, but also confidence. Confidence that comes from feeling ready, not rushed. Of course, Antonelli's season hasn't been perfect. After the upgrades Mercedes introduced mid-season, both Antonelli and George Russell struggled with the car. Confidence dropped, results dipped, and suddenly, the rookie who looked unstoppable was fighting just to stay in the points. This is where Mercedes's philosophy made all the difference. Instead of pointing fingers at their young driver, they openly admitted the car was at fault. Team representative Bradley Lord was clear. The team had a responsibility to keep Antonelli supported through the tough moments. That kind of backing is exactly what prevents a slump from turning into a spiral. For a rookie, those words matter. Imagine being told, "We know the car is the problem. We trust you. We'll get through this together." Compare that to Lawson's experience of being judged on a car setup that never gave him a fair chance. And you see how two different cultures can shape two completely different outcomes. Antonelli had the freedom to make mistakes, to question himself, and to learn without the fear of losing his seat after a single bad weekend. And that's why Mercedes's model feels more sustainable in today's Formula One. They're not just betting on instant results. They're building a driver for the long term. They're creating an environment where a young driver can grow, learn, and recover when things inevitably go wrong. The payoff is clear. Antonelli already looks like a future star because he's been given both responsibility and protection. Since returning to the Racing Bulls, Liam Lawson has shown just how resilient he is. After a slow start, he's scored points in 3 of the last 4 Grands Prix and accumulated a total of 20 points in the last 7 races. That's 10 more than Yuki Tsunoda managed in the senior Red Bull during the same period. Lawson is proving that the 2 races at Red Bull weren't an accurate reflection of his ability. In fact, those early setbacks may have been a blessing in disguise. He avoided a season-long crash in confidence, and by getting consistent seat time at the Racing Bulls, he's been able to rebuild form, find rhythm, and remind the grid that he's a driver capable of scoring results. Looking at the bigger picture, Lawson's story highlights 2 major lessons for teams and fans alike. First, preparation matters. Rushing a young driver into a top seat without proper testing and support can backfire spectacularly. Second, confidence is fragile, and how a team treats its rookies can define careers. Red Bull's succeed or get cut mentality works for exceptional talents like Verstappen, but it risks burning out or unfairly judging other gifted drivers. In contrast, Mercedes's structured, patient approach with Antonelli shows the value of nurturing talent and providing a safety net when things get tough. The difference in outcomes between these 2 rookies is almost textbook, and it gives us a lot to think about when evaluating young drivers across the grid. Now, the real question for you, the fan, is what you think Lawson's next step should be. Should he get another shot at a top team in the future, or is his path firmly with Red Bull's junior program for now? Vote in the final poll and leave a 1-line prediction in the comments for his 2026 season. I'm curious to see what you think. These conversations are exactly what makes F1 fan communities so engaging, and your participation really helps the channel grow.